This is the official podcast of the one and only Preston North End, PNE Pod. My name's Niall McCorn.
And I'm Neil Mellor. We'll be talking to some current first team players, we'll be talking to some North End legends, and a few of my former teammates as well.
And today on the show, a former manager, a manager who won the playoffs with North End in dramatic fashion at Wembley. What a day that was against Swindon. And Simon Grayson has been reliving it all for us.
It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant to hear some of the stories and what happened before as well, because Colchester away, remember that one? He tells us what happened there. He tells us about Jermaine Beckford, how that signing came about. I mean, how good was he? Scored a hat-trick in that playoff final. A few good stories he's got up his sleeve.
Simon has many fond memories about his time at Preston, but also, elephant in the room, was at Blackpool for a bit as well, so he tells us about the rivalry.
Yeah, he did. He mentioned that. He had a little bit of success there. But without doubt, Preston means a great deal to him. And it was great to hear the stories. He'd had success at other clubs, but certainly to see North End end that playoff hoodoo, always getting beat in playoffs, not under Simon Grayson.
Well, let's hear from the former Preston manager now. On PNE Pod, it's Simon Grayson. Delighted to say we've got a promotion-winning former Preston North End manager on the show today. Simon Grayson's here. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. You?
Yeah, not too bad. Summer's here. How's the golf been going?
Mixed bag, to be fair. I've only played a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. It's a frustrating sport. Managing's a lot easier. Well, I say that. Sometimes it isn't, but yeah, a bit frustrating. Some days good, some days poor.
The last North End manager to lift a trophy.
Yeah, and time flies, doesn't it? What we're talking 9 years now, and it's just flown by as that period of time. And obviously, the last couple of years, PNE have been close to getting into the playoffs, which give them an opportunity. But yeah, I look back on that day, and it was a lot of emotions going into it. And I know we'll probably speak in a little bit more detail later, but it was like a day where everybody was so on edge, nervous because of the record that Preston North End had with the...
we never win in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I was completely the other side of it. I was sort of really positive about what we're doing. And as it turned out, it's probably one of the most enjoyable days when you're 4-0 up after an hour. During
your playing career, you played for 18 years. I'm just looking at some of the clubs you played for. Leeds, Leicester, Villa, Blackburn. Some really big clubs in there. Do you think that helped you being at those clubs when you did eventually become a manager?
Well, I think in terms of some big games, then definitely, like my spell at Leeds was about a learning curve of being a young pro and then playing a few games, but had Billy Bremner as a manager, Howard Wilkinson as a manager, but then you're looking in the same sort of apprentice years, Gary Speed, David Batty, we were all competing to get into the first team, and then the likes of Gary McAllister and Gordon Strachan were part of the big rise of Leeds United back in the early 90s under Howard Wilkinson, when eventually were the last team to win the top division before it became the Premier League. So that set me up, and then obviously then went to Leicester and had an incredible time at Leicester playing wise. We within 10 games of playing in Leeds reserves, playing in the Championship games, 10 of them, playing a Championship playoff final against Blackburn, which we lost. The following season we lost the playoff final again against Swindon. The following year, we beat Derby in the playoff final at Wembley, and I was fortunate that I was the captain that day, which was an incredible feeling. The following year, we got relegated. The following year, we then won promotion at the Wembley again in the playoffs, and then the following year, we won the League Cup, which is the Carabao Cup now. So in that period of time, we had like 5-6 years of constantly, nearly every year at Wembley. So that set me up for the big games of how to deal with them, really.
What is it with you in the playoffs, by the way? Because you've mentioned it there as a player, and then as a manager, so many experiences, both good and bad, in the playoffs. It just seems to be like part of your footballing legacy almost, that the playoffs are something that you get associated with.
Well, my mates will say I'm just lucky. I don't know, it's just something that you learn how to deal with, because it isn't just the sort of the experience of the result, and it's all the lead up to it. So there's many times that I learnt from Brian Little, the first three actually, and then under Martin O'Neill at Leicester. Then I took into all my experiences of the first off with Blackpool, and then with Huddersfield, and then Preston. It was all about sort of learning the build up, dealing with it, making not too much of the occasion. It's another day at work, and how we had to turn up being professional, not talking about if, buts and maybes. The best way to get promoted, I said this all along, is by winning at Wembley, but it's also the worst way. And the experiences of losing motivate you to enjoy the positive days even more. I remember being in Dubai. No, I remember I was booked to go on holiday to Dubai, and Peter rang me. And I've known Peter since I was 17, 18 when he was on the board at Leeds. So I've always had a good relationship with him. And he said, look, will you come to Preston? I went, you've still got a manager. He says, well, no, if you tell me that you would take the job, we would maybe do something about it. And I went, right, look, I'm going to Dubai. I'm not missing out on a holiday. My wife will kill me if I turn down another holiday. I said, let me think about it. And what I did was I sent Snods to watch the game. And no, I think actually, as it happened, Peter sacked Graham before the game I sent Snods to. So, yeah, Peter went through with what he was going to do, because then it put a bit more pressure on me then, because they had a manager and didn't have a manager. So I think Tumble must have taken over as interim.
They won.
And I sent Snods to watch the Bournemouth game, who were top of the division at the time, and they won. And he went, look, I think we can do something with this group. It's a good club, and this, that, and the other. I think we can survive this season, which was going to be the main objective, and then build off there. And I knew, and this was what Peter was saying all along to me as well. And I then spoke to Moisey when I was in Dubai about it. And typical Moisey is like on the phone for about an hour, and I've rung in, so I've got a big phone bill off the back of Moisey giving me all about the spiel on Preston and stuff like that.
Were you worried about the Blackpool link? Was that in your mind because you sort of knew about the time you'd spent there, the success you'd had there?
It's never really bothered me, that, to be fair, because all I've thought about was if I'm successful, people will not bother about the rivalry stuff. I know that can be a little bit easier said than done, and later in my years that's come back to haunt me a little bit. But I wasn't worried about that. I just love working, and I looked at this as an opportunity that I can build something again. And I had a good relationship with Peter from years, as I mentioned, but also going forward, I knew we were all off the same page of what we were wanting, and he was talking about Mr. Hemmings and what he was doing, and the club needed stability, and he would back us and do this, that, and the other. And I thought, this is perfect for me as well. And so,
Did you finish the holiday?
I finished the holiday. Yeah, I think.
How big was that phone bill?
What was the mood like at Preston? Because the lads must have been absolutely buzzing that the previous manager had gone. So you've gone in there, and there must have been sort of a fresh start.
Yeah, I said this to a few people, and I got to know about sort of the non-relationship there was between the supporters and Graham. And I said it at the time, and I said it tongue-in-cheek, that I could have been the second most hated manager in world football, but I'd still have been a favourite at Preston, given what had happened. And things happen at certain clubs for different managers, and Graham did certain things, good and bad as well, which we've all done again. But I went in with the attitude that we just need to repair a little bit of damage, a little bit of confidence, and get the best out of this group of players, get to the summer still in League One, because it could have gone either way. And then I could regroup and get some players in that I wanted to do. And to be fair, the crop of players that I had there responded really well to what we were doing. People like Keith Keane were there, John Welsh was there, Garns was there, Hunts was there, who I knew anyway from Leeds time. And then you had people like John Messina and I think Andy Proctor. So there was like a mixed bag of Graham signings and other lads that I already knew. And I thought, well, let's get the first bit out of the way, and then we can start again in the summer.
Like you say, PNE was struggling when you came in, so to go the first 4 games unbeaten, for any manager in any job, that's always a boost, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think somebody said this to me not so long ago, that I don't think I've ever lost my first game as a manager, coach, wherever I've been, which, if I go back to work, hopefully that will continue. And I think the first game was Swindon away, I think, and Will... what's the second name now? Little left winger. Hayhurst. God, I've lost. Sorry, Will. I do apologise if you ever listen to this. I think he scored my first goal as well, and we drew down there, and it was good to get off a positive start. At least stop the rot. Anytime your club is going through a bit of a difficult time, as a coach, you need to stop the rot straight away, because if that carries on, it's very difficult to get out, because you want that new bounce to go through the club, and we had a decent start. It was all about taking small steps to build to the bigger steps as you went further forward.
Following season, you get in the playoffs. Rotherham in the semi-finals, can't get over the line, can't get to Wembley. That's North End's 9th failed attempt in the playoffs, but you've got experience in the playoffs, as we've already touched upon. What was it like in that situation, trying to pick the lads back up again to go again the following season?
Well, if you look at that first game as well, probably one of the best Preston North End goals ever. Joe Garner scored that volley,
Unbelievable.
Cheston volley, and I played golf with Garner last week, and he still reminds me about it today. So, unbelievable there. I always remember the second leg at Millmore, or New York Stadium as it is. I just thought a good way of getting a little bit of motivation would be the 5 minutes before you go out, instead of me giving like a 2-minute little chat, I dropped it on Russ Rugby, the kit man, because he's Preston through and through, what it meant to him and what it meant to his mates and family and friends if we got to Wembley to try and get promotion. Anyway, that went down well because we didn't win, did we? So Russ has never been involved in a team talk ever again, and never will be. But a lovely man, but team talk. He was so surprised.
You've not done that again, have you?
What did he say? Did he say anything interesting? Or
well, I maybe should have given him a little bit more time. He just said, just go and make your families and the supporters proud by getting to Wembley and stuff like that. Maybe he should have gone down on a different line. I don't see him being a future manager anyway.
What about some of the signings that you made? You obviously inherited Joe Garner, who did extremely well under you. Looking at some of the signings, Tom Clark, you got him, Chris Humphries, Declan Rudd, Kevin Davis, the loan players you made permanently, Galley, and obviously Jermaine Beckford as well. So recruitment, as a manager, as a coach, tell us, how do you decide which player you want to sign? How does it go about?
I think it's different now. You've got directors of football who make a lot of decision, and maybe the head coach doesn't have. I keep using head coach, but that's the term everybody uses. Back then, it was the manager, me and Peter. I think the one thing that I always had at Preston was a good relationship with Peter, and we both knew what we wanted as players that we needed to recruit. And so it was between me and him, really. We just did it all. I brought in Ian Miller, who had been my assistant manager at Huddersfield and at Leeds, and I knew back from Blackburn playing there, and he'd gone into the recruitment side, so I trusted Ian with doing match reports and watching players. And the contacts that both Peter and I had done over the years through agents led us to get a lot of players that have turned out to be the right ones.
So how does Tom Clark arrive at Preston? Are you saying, I want him? You've seen him play?
Yeah, well, I worked with Tom at Huddersfield, so I just thought, and I looked at the group and I thought, we need some leaders, we need the vocal types, we need proper defenders, because my philosophy was to make sure that we kept clean sheets, and at the top end of the pitch, let's go and let them lads express themselves. So I needed proper men. And Tom didn't play a lot for me at Huddersfield, but I just thought that he was fitted the bill of what and we needed at that particular time. And then you talk about Chris Humphries was on a free from Motherwell, which he'd had a good spell up there. And then a few others you build along the way. And it sort of you just have to keep making sure that you're improving. I think me and Peter both agreed that if you can get 2 or 3 signings, maybe each window, then you're improving the team. So the philosophy was that 2 or 3 that were in the starting 11 might then become the subs, and the subs are then become your squad players. That means you're improving the 11 to start, which is the main thing. Your rest of your squad is getting stronger. Your strength in depth getting stronger, and we just had the right motion and the right sort of characteristics that we wanted to bring to the club.
Neil Mellor scored. Preston take the lead, and that's exactly what it means to Neil Mellor to score in the West Lancashire derby.